Sex workers of Reddit. Have any of you ever have a close friend or anyone you normally interact with daily be a surprise customer? What was the experience like, and how did it affect your interactions with them? Other way around. When I turned 22 or 23 for my birthday, we went out drinking and ended up at a strip club. Stripper was making her rounds on stage to everyone sitting at the pit. She jumped on me and says my name excitedly. Only then I realized it was an employee of mine. Made sense why she couldn't work nights. I was at a lifestyle club and hung out with the couples that I did the club orientation with. The guy of one of the couples ran into the secretary at his work and she was in a fishnet bed distracting. I don't know how that next Monday went. LOL, I'm sure they were discreet. I had a brief stint as a bachelorette party stripper a couple of years back, on another state. I worked through an agent who does my client filtering. I was hired by a lady named Tori. Whoa, what a coincidence, I said. My childhood friend, with the same name, was also getting married. I parked my car, boarded the venue and wore my costume, which involves a full face mask. Long story short, same person, and the room was full of familiar faces. I managed to finish my routine with my mask on, got out of the venue as soon as I can, thinking I dodged a bullet. Then I remembered my back tattoo. Woke up with 50+ messages the next morning. Not gonna lie, should taken it off and gone harder. Attending a bachelor party a long time ago, the stripper came in, said hello, and went to the bathroom to fix herself up. She peeked out the door and called one of them over. Turns out, she went to high school with us, a couple of years younger. She called a friend to replace her and she left. Based off of this and many other comments in the thread, I'm gonna say being a stripper in the town you grew up in is not a good idea, LMAO. My mom was a stripper when I was in elementary school. A 22-year-old guy came in and paid for a lap dance and my mom recognized his last name and asked if he knew Ruth. I have no earthly idea why she would ask him given what she suspected. He got weirded out and said that Ruth was his mom and my mom said that his mom was her daughter's 3rd grade teacher. He then begged her not to tell his mom where he was. Apparently my mom just laughed and said she didn't want her daughter's teacher knowing that she was there either. I hated that teacher. She was such a jerk to me because we were poor and my mom always dressed S. I'm glad her kids weren't as uptight as she was. You must have had one heck of a childhood for your mom to be that open with you about stories like this. I'm confused and intrigued. Not a sex worker, but a girl from my high school became a somewhat popular cam model amateur P creator. Nearly 50 mil views on PH. My school was small so everyone knew everyone and she dated a good friend of mine for a while. As if she was fitting a stereotype, she was the very quiet nerdy shy girl in high school. I found out what she did, but made no attempt to reach out to her because I had no reason. One day I came across her P Snapchat account so I added it. My screen name on there is pretty much my full name so it wasn't like I was trying to be sneaky. However, I assumed she was too busy to look at when people add her on things. Shockingly enough, she messaged me later that day and we chatted normally. She was super nonchalant about everything. Apparently another kid from our high school found out and went into her chat room spamming her real name followed by question marks. So she politely asked that I didn't do that. Seemed pretty reasonable. This was a few years ago. We are from the US but she ended up moving to a major city in Europe. I happened to be visiting the area last year with my cousin for a backpacking trip, so on a whim I decided to send her a Snapchat saying I was in town. Again, I assumed she would be bogged down with messages from other people that she never even bothered to look. To my surprise again, she got back to me right away and we met for lunch later that week. I told my cousin we are meeting a friend and I informed him what she does for a living. But I told him not to bring it up unless she does. I wasn't sure how open she was about it in her day-to-day life. Sure enough, she showed up to lunch wearing a PH branded Letterman jacket with her stage name on the back. Kind of set the tone for what she was cool with talking about. Lunch was fantastic. We just chatted and caught up. She said we could ask her whatever we wanted to know. So all of my questions were about what it took for her to move to Europe. She also gave us tips of places to see while we were in town. This story just made me smile for some reason. My much younger brother was getting married, had a bachelor party at a strip club with a dozen or so high school friends. After about an hour there, a rather ordinary looking stripper comes on stage. takes off her top and our tables of guys goes wild, standing and applauding and hollering. I have no idea what is going on. The stripper looks through the stage lights. Her eyes get really big, she grabs her top and runs off stage to the back. Bouncers come running over to our table, thinking we're starting trouble. Nope. It turns out all of the guys in his high school class had a history class with her a few years back. She later came out and talked with us. Said she never thought she'd see someone, let alone 12. She knew it was in the next town over. That seems a bit strange that she thought she would never have seen her classmates in the next town over. I would have thought it was inevitable. I was a stripper back in the day. Halfway through a stage show realized that my flatmate's brother and his friends were there. That's how I was outed. LOL. Nothing much changed. Suddenly, my flatmate had a lot more visitors. I was not a sex worker at all, but I was a fine art model for a college for a while. There were so many people that I went to high school with that entered those classes over the 2 years I worked there. Usually they wouldn't say anything and I wouldn't say anything and I would just get naked and pose for 3 hours LOL. Sometimes we would chat after, but sometimes we would ignore each other and pretend it didn't happen. Somewhat related, me and buddy, Tom, go to this sleazy strip club in different part of town. As soon as we walk in he sees bartender he went to high school with who say Tom you perv. What are you doing here? Should have came back with the same question. I'm a stripper. My friend's dad came in. I hadn't seen him or my friend since high school. I accidentally asked him for a lap dance before I could tell who it was. He said no and I realized who it was as I walked away. He came in a few more times and avoided eye contact with me. When I was on stage he would look away. Another story. My first day as a stripper I saw 2 guys from my high school. We chatted, then they both paid for lap dances. This exact thing happened at my bachelor party. It was funny. My friend's dad had coached the stripper while on his daughter's soccer team. They had a pleasant chat and she went on to other patrons. Not a sex worker but know a couple current former who have worked in brothels, and they could see clients when they entered and choose not to come meet them if they recognized them or if they just didn't feel like working at that moment. So it didn't usually happen. But on the other hand a friend of mine slept with another friend of mine in exactly this way. She didn't mind him knowing and he didn't mind paying. Sounds like they should just skip the middleman and arrange a deal. Haha. When I was a cam girl I would have many guys message me saying they were my cousin or something. They were not, just trying to play out a fetish and I wasn't into it. So then one day a guy, in the main chat, said that he knew me and his name was AJ fake name. I was like, yeah right, I've only ever known one AJ, if it's true what's my name and sure enough he put my real first name right there in the chat. We were in youth group in church together almost a decade before that. He became a regular. That happened with me and my estranged older half-brother once when I was camming. I messaged him on Facebook to confirm and we had a good laugh about it. Not a sex worker, but found out a girl from high school that I had a crush on was a stripper. It was my buddy's bachelor party. We load up in a van and head about an hour away to a better strip club. We get in and settle at a table. About 30 minutes in I get a tap on the shoulder and this sexy butt chick hops in my lap. She calls me by the nickname I had in high school and hugs me. She was always tomboyish in high school, never wore makeup, always competed well in gym, kinda nerdy, quiet, and reserved, but always very pretty if you thought about it. I didn't recognize her for a full minute. It was a fun reunion. It was a full nude spot and she gave no fricks during her stage performance. Really seeing everything I really should have tried to pursue it in HS. But I was a dumbass back then. There was a girl I went to high school with who was basically a walking stereotype. She fit so well into the archetypal ditzy blonde mold that you might swear it was an act if you didn't know better. She was also freaking mean. This girl was a power B and wasn't really nice to anybody as far as I'm able to remember. People orbited her because she was hot and had everything. She never really bothered me because I did my best to be invisible, but the handful of interactions I ever had with her left me feeling unpleasant. Turns out she wound up being a pretty lucrative stripper later in life. I bought a lap dance from her and while being nice is part of the job it really did feel like in those brief few minutes that she did have a genuine personality shift. She was way more laid back, you could even hear it in her voice. She even commented about how she wasn't a bee like I used to be, and I have nicer tea. It was a genuinely fun interaction. She seemed happier in comparison to the person I remembered. Maybe she had bad parents and was being controlling with her peers as a coping mechanism. Kinda, sorta along the same lines, I guess. Once a friend wanted me to go to a strip club with him located outside a small town in Alabama. A young, really young, looking girl got on the stage and he told me, "Look at her. Isn't she the prettiest thing you've ever seen?" I said, "Yeah, but she seems like she's too young to be working here." "Don't worry, she's 18. "How do you know?" I asked. "She's my niece." I felt uncomfortable after that. OP here. And wow. Just wow. I was not expecting my post to get as much attention as it did. As a matter of fact, I thought it was such a throwaway comment that it didn't occur to me to even follow up on it. But to address all the comments and messages I've gotten because of it, it happened in a small club way out in the county outside a town named Harvest, Ayla. I don't know why it's so important to folks to know that unless they are expecting to go there and see the girl for themselves. Fat chance of that happening. It was about 10 years ago, so I seriously doubt she would still be there. Another thing, so many are casting doubt about his character or the nature of his relationship with the girl. Trust me, his tone was that of a proud uncle, not a dirty, lusty one. You would have to know the area. And opioids have decimated rural Alabama to the point that it's refreshing to find a young person that is healthy and making an honest living. Besides that, I had known him for years. You will not find a more religious, God-fearing person. I had a classmate who was a stripper and she was very open about loving it when people she knew came to see her at work and let her dance for them. She thought it was intimate in a fun, friendly way. I was talking to a stripper. She said she had grown up in a suburb about an hour away and used to strip there. She said that ultimately there were too many guys from her high school who came in. I didn't have a surprise customer, but I do have friends that turned into customers as well. Mostly for just pictures, but I do have the occasional hottle date with some of them. They're all pretty chill about it actually. I had a friend who is a lifestyle dom. For those unfamiliar with BDSM lingo, a female dominant. Not professionally, just personally for fun. She is into a lot of freaky stuff, but working in the public, she is very secretive about her identity. No pictures of herself online, and very cautious before meeting anyone. Well, she has had guys message her asking her for some pretty nasty stuff, like bottling her pee and selling it to them, or even making a crap sandwich on one occasion. Yes, an actual crap sandwich. Well, the fricked up part is, she messages with these guys, and they, without her asking, reveal all sorts of personal details about themselves, like where they live or work, and they would send her photos of themselves. On more than one occasion she has run into one of them at work, and they had no idea it was her. She recognized them and think to herself, this guy that begged me to make him lick his own CM off my feet, and he has no idea who the frick I am. It would just make her feel even more powerful, although she remained perfectly professional in their interactions, but may have acted a little bitchier than she normally would because she knew they liked it. Edit. For the record, she never did sold any of these things. They were just requested by people she was chatting with. She is not comfortable with these things, like the crap sandwich, but it doesn't stop people from making these requests. Making a crap sandwich on one occasion. Disgusting. I hate processed food. I don't really qualify as a sex worker. I'm a guy who fricks women on camera for pee producers, so I'm not paid and I don't have customers. But one time I showed up to a shoot for a blow bang and ran into the guy who owned and operated the CrossFit place I went to. We acknowledged the connection on the set and performed our roles, but basically never spoke of it again and resumed our normal trainer-customer dynamic after that. He was married at the time, but I think they were open, not that it was any business of mine. Not exactly someone I knew well, but I went on a Tinder date with a guy. Went to see a movie, nothing exciting. Nice enough guy but no chemistry at all, so didn't stay in contact. Opened my hotel door to my client one night to see him standing there. Didn't react to the fact that I knew him because there's not a single person who knows what I do. Spent the entire booking telling me how sad he was we never caught up again and how he knew it was me when he saw my photos. Photos were blurred and face cropped out, but I've got distinguishing hair, and how it must be fate. Played dumb the whole time because this guy knew my actual identity and eventually asked him to leave because of how uncomfortable his behavior was making me. All he had to do was shut his mouth. LMAO. A guy that works with my mom found out I sold nudes, and not only did he buy some, he also sent me $50 every month to treat myself. Not a worker though. Funny story. One night my best mate was in town, lived in another state, used to live here. We went out clubbing and eventually decided to go to the strippers, pay our money, and as we enter my friend notices a stripper laying on her back spread eagle for a guy. Highly drunk, he yells out, "Heck yeah, how good is this?" The stripper hears and notices my friend, sits up and yells, "What are you doing in here?" My friend instantly went and sat in the corner proper embarrassed. Turns out it was his cousin. Family gatherings are gonna be super awkward now. How does one even find sex workers? This is a mystery to me because this was like when I was kid and didn't know where to find weed. When I was kid and didn't know where to find weed, I still don't. I worked in a brothel in my hometown. Before the brothel, I worked at a pharmacy owned by a man I got along especially well with. We had a very close friendship and mutual feelings for one another, except he was married and so we addressed the feelings but never acted on them. He always said he wished he had a time machine so he could go back in time and be with me, and that whoever I dated would be the luckiest man in the world, etc. One day at the brothel some dude booked me and I accepted the booking. When I got in the room I noticed he was my old boss' son I had met a few times when he had come to see his dad. He said he had been fantasizing over me since he had met me, which was weird because in the pharmacy I never looked decent, and it was so weird sleeping with him. He had the same smile and eyes as his dad and it really tripped me out. He became sorta besotted by me. He found me on Facebook and would ask me when I was working, or if he could come over. It was weird because he knew I had feelings for his dad and really didn't care. One day he was pestering me so one of my co-workers suggested I say to him I will agree to have a booking with him if he brings in a pair of his father's dirty underwear. He was freaked out but actually considered it. I told him I was joking and wouldn't be seeing him again. I felt guilty and weird, it was too close to home. One of my friends still works for his dad and he can be difficult to work for. She always says once she quits she will say I quit, and Catkib fricked your son. Guys from school and stuff would come in but generally I would avoid them or just decline if I knew they were choosing me because they knew me. It's just easier not to mix things. Clients don't seem to understand that it's completely transactional and that I'm not interested in talking to them for free. My bisexual friend was getting married to his wife a few years ago. For his bachelor party we hired a male stripper for him, you know, as his farewell package. We thought the wordplay was just excellent. All of us friends are straight guys, so instead of picking out a stripper for him we just called up an agency, told them the situation, and they sent someone. That someone was his stepbrother that he doesn't really get along with. It was pretty awkward. He was more professional than I think any of us expected him to be. He called the agency and they sent someone else over within an hour. A woman this time who was not in any way related to anyone there. They apparently have a bit of a better relationship now. The awkwardness and embarrassment of the situation gave them something to bond over a little. Not a sex worker, but delivered a pizza to a known sex worker, and at the same moment I was about to knock on the door, a relative opens the door and watches me holding the pizza up to him. I couldn't do anything but laugh. He laughed too, maybe out of embarrassment, and as soon as the sex worker understood what was going on she also started laughing. Never mentioned this moment to anyone who knows my relative, and he is grateful for that to this day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.